If you're here, you're probably juggling anxiety, revision timetables, and a teen who might feel like giving up. So let's make sure every minute that they spend revising actually counts. Today we're breaking down why rereading isn't cutting it and how retrieval-based revision can actually stick. Welcome back to the Mindful Toolbox Podcast. I'm your host, Sarahlynn, and today we're zooming in on GCSE Resits, the stress, the frustration, and the practical steps that can make a difference. So if you're new to the GCSE scene, in November, thousands of students across England sit resits in English and maths. And this is because by law, any student without a grade 4, which is known as the old C, in these subjects, maths and English, must continue until age 18. This isn't just a tick box for them. These grades affect college courses, apprenticeships, and even career options. But here's the problem. Most revision strategies, especially the ones that they review in school, they don't work. Ebbinghaus's forgetting curve, which we're going to learn about more later, says that we lose 70% of what we learn within the first 24 hours if it's not revisited. And Dunlosky in 2013 found that retrieval practice and spaced revision, which we're such big advocates for, are high utility, whereas highlighting and rereading are low utility. So if your child spends 3 hours rereading notes, it feels productive. They're going to feel like they did something, but the science says it's just not cutting it. Now, we have 2 episodes that are all about the science of learning and memory, but here's a crash course for you. The science of memory has 3 parts to it: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Now, the encoding part uses the hippocampus, which is our memory saving elephant, if you know our flip the lid method of teaching the brain. So the hippocampus sorts the new information. And this is really important because when we make connections to previous information, it helps the hippocampus to sort our new learning within that file. The second stage is storage. Now, this is where information moves to long-term memory, but it only happens during rest, review, and sleep. So that's why continuous revision and good sleep is so important in terms of boosting your child's chances at remembering what they've learned. The third phase is retrieval. Now, this is the act of recalling memories that we've already put into long term. It strengthens the connection so it becomes quicker every single time they want to answer that question. Now, here's something that I want to ask you. Does rereading mean they're going to succeed? Unfortunately, no. It's a false sense of familiarity. When we reread something, we're just skimming. We're not actually working, and so our brains are not processing anything. What about highlighting? No. Many times highlighting can just feel like we're doing something because it's an action, but instead it creates a little bit of overwhelm because there's no rules or system to our highlighting. All right, last one. What about cramming? I know many of our students are quite fond of the idea of just revising the night before and then smashing the test the next morning. Will it work? Well, science is against us. It tells us that our prefrontal cortex, so our wise owl, the one that makes all the good decisions, it will actually fly away, turn off, go offline when we are in a stressful situation. It actually blocks retrieval. So if rereading and highlighting and cramming, which are typical recipe ingredients for children's revision process, what actually works? Well, the harder revision feels, the stronger the learning. Yeah, I said it. The more their brain has to work at retrieval, at inferencing, at making connections, the more likely they're going to remember it. So, knowing that, are you ready to do a little bit of work in the next couple of weeks and boost those grades? Great. Let's grab our pencil and our paper and dive on in. Oh, my coffee in this new setup, it's so far away. But it smells so... We caught that on camera, didn't we? Well, it does. It smells so good. It's just a shame that it went all over my jeans. We like to keep things interesting, apparently. The show must go on. The thing is, it's not really that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. And I'm so accident prone that I'm not even surprised that it happened. So we're just gonna move forward knowing that, what happens? This stuff kind of happens. Okay. Where was I? Oh yeah, we were grabbing our tea and our coffee so we could dive on in. I'm a little nervous now to touch my coffee. Okay, but it'll be really yummy, so there we go. But I guess this is like part of when you sit with your friends and you have a cup of tea, you have a cup of joe. This is when the real comes out. This is when the moments become genuine and real. And so we're just gonna sit in this real, genuine moment where I have coffee on my trousers and we're all just gonna move forward with our hot drink and the knowledge that we're gonna get some real good information here about how to revise and make the best of our revision time. So let's dive on in. Okay, so let's make this practical. Here's what retrieval looks like for your child and how you can support, even if you don't remember simultaneous equations or if you don't remember how Benedict treated Helena. Let's start with active recall. So active recall is the process of actually trying to remember something. The best way to do it is through flashcards. I just went through this with one of my year 10s as we were getting ready for science. Our flashcard needs to have one question and one answer. We acknowledge that without being able to remember this 8 stores of energy in physics, he wasn't going to be able to answer those 6-mark questions. So, how can we answer those 6-mark questions even more confidently? Remembering the 7 stores of energy. And the process to do that is through active recall. Now, another way that we can go through active recall is called blurting. Now, this is where we may have spent a little bit of time reviewing or revising something, so either watching a video or reading a textbook. Then we put it away and we then write down everything we can remember. That process of actually trying to remember what you just learned not only means you're going to be super locked in when you're doing the revision process because you know the blurt is coming, but it also checks to see what sticks and where your gaps are. So it helps you revise more specifically. As a parent, how can you help? Well, essentially, you can just hold the card. If you guys want physical flashcards, you could just hold the card. No teaching necessary. But you can also help them create a revision schedule of when they're going to use their flashcards on their phone or even their blurting time periods. The second thing that we can do to help our GCSE students or any child preparing for an exam is spaced repetition. So this is where we are going to review something at numerous intervals to reduce our forgetting curve, right? Ebbinghaus said, if we don't review something after 24 hours, we forget 70% of it. So we review after 1 day, 3 days, 1 week, 2 weeks. And if you keep being able to remember it, then that card can go into the, yes, I remember, let's move it further down the line. But if you can't remember that flashcard, if you can't remember that one of the energy stores is called gravitational potential energy, then you must put that card into a retrieval spacing that's a lot closer, so maybe tomorrow. So if you remember it, it goes a little bit further down the line. If you don't remember it, add it to the pile to be reviewed in the next day or so. So I mentioned really briefly that your child can have the flashcards physical, but they can also use apps. Now, I'm a big advocate for the app version because it means that they can have them on their phone at any time, and it's not a bunch of flashcards that they're hauling around. So apps like Anki or Quizlet are the ones that we often encourage our students to use. Moving forward to interleaving. So interleaving is the process of replicating what an exam actually looks like. It's when we mix all of the topics together. You might have fractions and algebra in one session, or we're looking at cell biology and communicable diseases all in one go. This process mirrors the exam. When questions are never in neat blocks, we're helping our brain prepare for that really sporadic approach that exams often take. But remember, try not to go cross subject because that's pushing the brain further than is necessary. The next thing we need to look at is dual coding. Now, dual coding is one of my favorite methods that I teach many of our neurodivergent students. And this is because it pairs together two types of encoding, two types of input. So we're looking at something like a visual photo as well as an auditory explanation. So if we're looking at an animal cell, you may have a physical drawing in front of you that you can label while you're watching a video explaining all of the different processes that each of these elements will take. Other examples include graphs and flowcharts and diagrams. One of my favorite things to do to prepare for essays in English are mind maps. They're incredible because it helps us to connect different themes and characters and quotes in a really organized manner. Now, if we want to go even further, we're looking at elaboration. So how can we take this knowledge and really prepare for those stretch questions in the exam? The way to do that is by asking why and how questions. Why does multiplying fractions work that way? Why do I have to flip the second fraction when I'm dividing and change the division sign to multiplying? This forces deeper processing and ensures that your child is not just memorizing something, but truly understands what's going on. I want to share with you a couple of case studies that really hone in on the how. Like, how do we know that the aforementioned methods really help students in a very short amount of time boost their grades? So I want to introduce you to a student named N. Now, N was resitting maths, and he was just rereading his textbook continuously. And as we've talked about above, that doesn't work. And so what we did was we switched to flashcards. We started looking at past papers, and within 6 weeks, N went from a grade 3, which meant he had to do a resit, to a grade 5. The shift wasn't more hours that he was revising. In fact, we probably did less hours than what he originally had dedicated to maths revision. What we zoomed in on was the method. We helped his revision become clearer, more concise, and therefore more effective. One of our other students, she wasn't preparing for GCSEs. In fact, she was preparing for the 11 plus scholarship. Now, she was a bundle of nerves. She was overwhelmed, anxious, and by the time we got up to her exam, she was close to shutdown mode because she was so nervous. She was talking herself out of the ability or the skill that she had. And so we focused on a couple of things. First, we addressed the self-talk. We really needed to make sure that she had confident, positive self-talk. Then we backed up what we were saying in her self-talk with retrieval strategies and mindful exam prep. So we looked at things like dual coding. That was really, really big for her visual brain. We looked at things like keeping our sessions short and sharp. We brought in movement breaks. We talked about how she can help herself by creating different activities or different games using her flashcards. In the end, she won that scholarship, and it's one of the most exciting things to see and to have a phone call from a parent saying how elated not just the family is, but how elated the child is in the effort that they were able to put forward and the payoff that is attached to that effort. Now, we want all of our students to feel that way. We want all of them to go into the exam the first time and feel like they're giving it their best and that they know exactly how to revise to achieve the best outcome. But unfortunately, not all students have this information on revision process. And that's why we're so excited to be sharing it here today, because we want to make sure that everyone gets the opportunity to leave the exam feeling like they did a revision that does their outcome justice. And if you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, well, this is great, but how do I explain this to my child that is looking down the barrel of an upcoming second try at an exam in a subject that they don't connect with? How am I supposed to just walk into the room and tell them, oh, here's how you should revise, when they know I've been out of the classroom for a very long time? Well, lucky for you, not only do we have these episodes, but we also have an entire Studying 101 guide on the Bettering Youth website. So if you're feeling like they're not going to listen to you because it's coming from you, but you want them to have this information, send them the link and they can go through the process and understand the exact how-to that we're talking about today themselves. But if they're willing to let you in and they want you to be their partner, amazing. Buddy systems is one of the best ways to help any student, but especially our neurodivergent students, to get things done. All you have to do is be there. You don't need to know the criteria. You don't need to know the exam. You just have to hold the flashcards, mark the answers, provide the healthy snacks, help them remember that they've got it when they're going into a revision session, and tell them that you're proud of them for trying a new method that is going to help propel them one step further. And as always, as their parent, their carer, their guardian, your main job is to celebrate the wins. We're not going to track the amount of hours that they've spent. Instead, we are tracking correct retrieval. We are showing them that we don't just want them to spend hours locked in their room and that's what makes them so good. Instead, we want to encourage them to use the methods and celebrate when they do. At the end of the day, we need to model calm. If you panic, they panic. So regulate yourself and then you can help co-regulate them later. Breathe, reset, and leave them with a reminder that you're so proud of how hard and how smart they are working. Okay, in the beginning, I promised you a roadmap to help your child prepare for their resits. So what does this look like in practice? We know how to revise now, what to avoid, and what your role as the parent is. Let's map out the next 4 weeks just in time for those resits in November. In week 1, we are going to do a past paper baseline. Yes, they've just maybe written their GCSEs, but they're gonna have to write another past paper because this is going to help us to clearly see and know where those gaps are. So take the week, find out which exam they're rewriting, and have them do a past paper baseline. Moving from the end of week 1 into week 2, they're grabbing the things that they didn't get in their past paper, adding them to flashcards so that by week 2, we're doing the active retrieval. We're looking at flashcards, we're blurting within the specified gaps that they have had in their past paper. So we're looking at videos, we're closing it, and we're writing down what we remember and then checking to see what we didn't remember, putting what we didn't remember on a flashcard and using them consistently. So that by week 3, we have spaced repetition cycle working at its best. We're bringing in different topics, different subjects, and we're using those flashcards. We're using those mind maps to help us nail down the things that we just keep forgetting. And therefore, by week 4, we are going to be ready and confident to sit a full mock, a full timed paper under exam conditions. And the more we expose ourselves to that, the more our guard dog, our amygdala, will feel a lot calmer within the exam space, the exam environment, and we can help it feel more settled so it doesn't fly off the handles and turn off our prefrontal cortex. This whole process, I want you to remember that we don't go backwards to just reread your notes 5 times. No, we're done with that. It's test, review, test again. All right, so that leads us to your challenge, your Mindful Toolbox challenge this week. I would encourage you to bring your child in on this one, have a conversation about which subject they want to focus on the most. Get them to rate different strands within English or within maths, so that way they can hone in on the one that needs a little bit more TLC. And after they've chosen that subject, they're going to make 10 flashcards tonight. Then tomorrow, they're going to do a test of those flashcards. And again, in 3 days' time. And remember, your role as the parent is just to play the role of quizmaster. And yeah, many of our parents have sent in videos and photos of full-on game boards that they have made for their child. The point is not to make this an isolated task for your child where they just go upstairs and they just read. Instead, we want to show them that the process of teaching, the process of recalling information, the process of testing and retesting, that is what makes all the difference. And that's it. It's small, but it's powerful stuff. And I'm so excited that you are here to help your child really hone in on their exam skills in preparation for their resits. So if your child is facing resits, remember this: the problem is not the effort, and I know you know that. You've seen them do the revision hours. The problem is their method. It's outdated and it let them down. Retrieval practice feels harder now that you've added in these new methods. I know it does, and it feels like they're failing more, but that's why it works. And if you want a little more, don't forget to go back to episode 6 and episode 7 of the Mindful Toolbox podcast. Episode 6 are all about memory that sticks, and episode 7 dives into how we can support our neurodiverse children, especially those with ADHD, really hone in on those memory skills. Don't forget to send this to a family who is in the GCSE trenches, and hit the subscribe button down below as well as the bell so you don't miss our next episode 13, where we are diving into the ADHD school system hacks, how you can bring things within the classroom that will help our children who need a little extra support within a system that doesn't always suit them. Until next time, you bring the tea, and I hope your child uses the tools in the next couple of weeks leading up to their GCSE resits. Let me know how they go. I can't wait to celebrate them. Have a great day. Woo, 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 woo. All right, another coffee stain? How did that one happen? Okay, we are on. Oh, my coffee's so far away now. Come back. It's okay. We'll sort that. Alrighty, Roo.